PNR Networks is a member of Patreon. Show your love for our shows by joining our ongoing fundraising campaign and get some fantastic perks in return. Check it out and become a Patreon sponsor. You can sign up at patreon.com, patreon.com/PNR Networks. And thanks for your support.
She just goes a little mad sometimes.
Do you ever feel like you're normal and the rest of the world has lost its collective mind?
Put your helmet on. We'll be reaching speeds of 3.
Do you find people saying this to you a lot?
Are you totally deranged?
Are you looking for a looking glass to pass through?
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Or looking for a rabbit hole to fall down?
Who could think of a better punishment, really? Everything's the same here, it's just a little worse.
Guess what?
Life's a bitch. Now so am I.
You found it. Welcome to Platinum Rose's Garden.
Hello, my darlings. This is Platinum Rose Lady welcoming you to Platinum Rose's Garden on Sunday, November 25th, 2018. Well, let's see. Thanksgiving is in the rearview mirror and Christmas is looming. What an awful way to put that, isn't it? Oh my gosh, that sounds so terrible. We should never look at Christmas as looming. Christmas is approaching and we should hold out our arms and be joyful. That's the way we should be. Madison Avenue has other ideas, but I prefer my way. I hope everybody who celebrated had a really good Thanksgiving. I'm sorry I wasn't with you guys last week, real life. But our Thanksgiving was really good. We went to my sister's and, hung out with them and with my family and stuff. And that was fun, It's a nice time of the year, and everybody should be with somebody, and it doesn't have to be family you're genetically tied to, because if being Supernatural fans have taught us anything, family don't end with blood. And sometimes you have to make your own family, it doesn't have to be someone you're genetically tied to. You can view your friends as family or just other people in your life that you love and are close to your heart. And I hope that everybody had someone that they were with on Thanksgiving that made them feel loved and special, because that's obviously a good thing, and we all need that. Thankfully, for the most part, I didn't see a lot of Black Friday stupidity, which is nice, because the last couple of years, you look at the news on Black Friday and it's just one facepalm moment after another, just people behaving like, I would say animals, but I think animals behave better than people sometimes, with people just hurting each other for stuff, and I totally don't get it. But, so now we have Christmas to look forward to and plan for, and I know a lot of people I think some people love planning stuff more than the actual event. You have people who write down lists of everything, and they have, and that's cool. I mean, if that's your thing, that's great. That's your deal. I can't plan that far ahead. I just can't. I write down stuff that I have to, if you're writing down like a recipe or stuff you need for a recipe or whatever, a gift list or whatever. I totally do that, but people do that months in advance. And if you're that organized, good on you, but, not me. Can't do it. Nope. The one thing about this time of the year is that it's the time of year when, the year's winding down and stuff like that. And they have a lot of retrospects on people that have left this plane of existence this time of year. And since the last time I talked with you guys, Stan Lee passed away, and that sucks. I'm sorry. There's no other way. I remember feeling when, I don't know, I can't speak for anybody else, but when I heard that Stan Lee had passed, it was like, I felt like I lost a member of my family. That cool uncle that told you all the most awesome stories and didn't talk to you like a kid and made you feel important and special. That's who Stan was to me. He was this amazing person, and there'll never be another Stan Lee. And that's the way it should be, I am of the opinion, and nobody else has to agree with it, but my opinion is that if you leave this plane of existence, but people still talk about you, and when they talk about you, they smile, then you're not really gone. You're never really truly gone, as long as someone remembers you and your memory makes them smile. So I think it's pretty much guaranteed that Stan Lee, if he's not going to be immortal, is going to be pretty damn close. So, to Mr. Lee, to wherever you are, Excelsior, sir. Speaking of people who take their imaginations and run with them, I thought I would get to this week's fanfic of the week. Okay, this week's fanfic of the week, we're going back a little bit, for this fanfic was written in, actually 2006, so we're going quite a ways back, but I found it, and it kind of had a special place in my heart considering what, my fella and I are doing. This coming week, they're running, one of our local cinemas is doing a Fathom Events where they're running the original Superman with Christopher Reeve. And I am a huge fan of that movie, Superman the Motion Picture. I loved it. It was an awesome film. And I've always been a fan of Superman. I know for some people they call him the Big Blue Boy Scout, blah, blah, blah. But I always thought he was great. And I never thought, you read a lot of fanfic out there, and some crossovers make sense. Some crossovers you're kind of like, eh? It's just kind of like that dog hearing a strange sound head tilt thing. And then you read it and you go, actually, that was pretty fun. That's the case with this one, because I never would have put these two things together and come up with a fic, but apparently somebody did. And that somebody on fanfiction.net goes by the name JenniferRSong. That's capital JENNIFER, capital R, capital SONG, and it's all smushed together. So they have written 39 stories in the following categories. 39 stories for Danny Phantom, Batman Beyond, CSI, miscellaneous books, Harry Potter, Lois and Clark, Doctor Who, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Star Trek the Original Series, Superman, CSI Miami, and Star Trek Enterprise. So they're obviously have a lot of different tastes. The story I'd like to talk about real quick is a piece called A Crazy CSI. And this is what the synopsis says. Quote, a silly little piece in 500 words showing why Superman only deals with the police and not the CSIs. Crossover with CSI Las Vegas, end quote. I liked it. I thought it was cute. It was funny. It cracked me up. So if you get a chance, there'll be a link in the show notes. Please go check out A Crazy CSI by JenniferRSong. Leave a review if you're so inclined, and let her know that you heard about her fic here on Platinum Rose's Garden. And now that takes us to what I know you're all waiting for, this week's Supernatural episode recap.
Carry on my wayward son. There'll be peace when you are done. Lay your weary head.
Season 14, Episode 6 of Supernatural, Optimism. And this episode was directed by our own, the lovely, the talented Richard Speight Jr. And we begin with Then. Then is dealing with a moment from season 13 that I think pretty much made everybody's heart stop. The moment that Lucifer stole Jack's grace to power himself up. And also dealing with the fact that Dean had to say yes to the Apocalypse World's version of Michael to stop Lucifer in this universe, and how Michael reneged on his promise and wound up using Dean as a meat suit to do quite a few terrible things, including trying to build up a monster army to go to war with humans. And Michael leaving Dean's body, and Dean having to deal with knowing what happened while, Michael was inside of him doing things. And also with Apocalypse World Charlie Bradbury, which I know was a real heartbreaker for Dean and Sam, finding out that there was a Charlie still on Apocalypse World after the Charlie from the Winchester's world was murdered by the Steins. And now we are at Now. And Now is in McCook, Nebraska, where we see a young lady who seems like a very pleasant young woman. She says hello to a person sitting on a bench, and she looks very pretty and friendly. And she walks to a small town library, opens the door, lets herself in. And we find out from the conversation that she has with a young man named Winston, we find out her name is Harper. We see her working in the library. So she has one of my dream jobs. I have 3 dream jobs: librarian, actress, pro wrestling announcer. I don't know if any of those things are ever going to happen, but those are my 3 dream jobs. I'm either very hopeful or pathetic. I'm not sure which. So Harper is going to be going on a dinner date with Winston. Well, Winston refers to it as a date. Harper keeps referring to it as a dinner, notably not using the word date in there. And she also has a coworker named Miles, who is obviously very concerned that Winston is going to try something skeevy, apparently. And Harper has to kind of tell Miles to take him and his stapler and back off. Winston walks out of the library. He's very happy that he's going to be going on this date, and he's kind of strutting down the street. And he's doing really great with himself until he gets dragged into the bushes by a hand, grabs him by the neck, drags him into an alleyway. We hear a scream and we see a splash of blood, and we get the credits. We come back. We are at the Bat Cave in Lebanon, Kansas, and Jack is sitting at the kitchen table, pouring sugar, quite a lot of sugar, into a coffee cup, which Dean notices and comments on. Jack brings up that he is trying to, he's still adjusting to the fact that he doesn't have his grace anymore, and says that he, is learning how to taste things, and things taste different now because of not having his grace and all this stuff like that. Now, you also have to remember, we as the audience know that something is wrong with Jack, that he has been coughing a lot, and we have seen him coughing up blood into a tissue, and that's not the first time that it's happened. So something's obviously wrong with him not having his grace. Jack tells Dean where Sam is, that Sam has gone to meet up with Charlie Bradbury, and they're on a hunt. And Dean's just come back. He was on a hunt or some kind of overnight mission or whatever with Mary and Bobby. I'm assuming Mary and Bobby are still staying at Donna's cabin. Jack brings up that Charlie and Sam are probably, the hunt they're on must be really exciting, and, he wishes he was with them, and so on and so forth. So we cut to what Charlie and Sam are doing. It's not exciting. They are outside of Memphis, Tennessee. They're sitting in a truck, which is on the other side of the street from a bus kiosk. And they're kind of parked in between bushes, sitting there staring at this small bus kiosk. It's almost like we're in a Michael Bay movie. Not. Anyway. Sam's really kind of like, I don't know why we're here. And we find out while they're talking that Charlie has picked up what she thinks is a case, that what's going on is that 4 people in this immediate area around this little bus kiosk have gone missing. And so that's why they're there. Back at the Bat Cave, we see Jack still coughing, but he's telling Dean that he wants to hunt. He's, when Dean asks him about the cough and stuff, Jack says something to the effect of that maybe he's allergic to being bored and that he wants to hunt. And I was like, don't be fresh. It's awful. That's the first thing that popped into my mind was don't be fresh. And I'm going, oh, sweet mother of God, I sound like my mother. Oh, God, no! Not that my mom's not a great lady, but I'm like, I can't sound like somebody's mother. Please, no. Shit, that means I'm an adult. Fuck, no, we can't do that. Back in Tennessee, we see Charlie and Sam still sitting in the car, and Sam playing with a fidget spinner that I don't know where he got that. I mean, I have a feeling it's not his, that it just was in the car. But watching Sam play with a fidget spinner was one of the most adorable things I've ever seen. It was just so cute. I just couldn't take it. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know why this is so adorable, but it is just the cutest thing ever. And Charlie's looking at him like, you're an idiot. Not like in a mean way, but she just kind of like got this look on her face like, boys, that kind of a thing. We back at the Batcave, Jack has found an article in the paper about Winston's death and the fact that his body had bite marks all over it, what looked like human bite marks, and that other people in town have gone missing as well. And Dean is of the opinion that it might be something, and he wants to check it out, and Jack says that he wants to go check it out with him, but Dean's like, no, I'm going by myself. And Jack brings up what sounds like one of Sam's rules, God bless him, this whole everyone should hunt with a partner. And I'm like, oh God, that so sounds like Sam. And Jack's got all those rules memorized, precious little bean that he is. And Jack is telling Dean that he needs something to occupy himself. And he also tells Dean that Dean's not the only one who's not dealing well with guilt issues. I mean, Dean blames himself. Big surprise. That's not a slam on Dean. All you Dean divas out there, don't come at me with the pitchforks and the torches. But Dean blames himself for everything that Michael's done since he's been in the Winchester's universe, and it turns out that Jack is blaming himself as well. Jack is blaming himself for the fact that he didn't kill Michael when he had the chance, when he was still at full power and Michael was in the Batcave, and he's been blaming himself for that. And I'm just like, oh, you poor little precious darling, come here and let me hold you. Please don't do this to yourself. Dean's finally like, okay, fine, I'm going on this hunt. You're coming with me. I'm going to call Dean. Dean says he's going to call Sam and let them know that they're going to go do this. Charlie, as it turned out, back in Tennessee, Sam finds out that Charlie found a pile of what she refers to as goo, and I really couldn't come up with any other way to word it either. In a jar, she's got this quarter full jar of stuff. I'd really rather not, think about what it was, if that's okay with you guys. And brings up again that, people have been missing, 4 people to be exact, from around this specific area. So we see Jack and Dean. They're both in FBI suits. Dean identifies himself as Agent Berry, and identifies Jack is Agent Charles. I'm like, oh my gosh, little baby FBI agent, so cute, can't stand it. And they go into a diner and they interview the waitress at the diner, who is very rude, and eventually tells them after Dean bribes her a little bit about the victim, because it did say in his obit that he ate a lot at this one specific diner. During which time, when she's talking with Dean and Jack, she makes a remark about sex while she's looking at Jack, and I'm instantly all like, oh, bitch, you did not just somebody hold my earrings. I was like, oh, no, you did not just flirt with Jack. I'm taking my shoes off, because, you don't do that. Not with my little baby Jack, no. She tells them about Winston, and also about the girl that Winston was supposed to be going out to dinner with, Harper. As we find out, her name is Harper Sales, the girl from the library. Dean and Jack find out not only from the waitress, but from some other people in town. This being a small town, of course, there's going to be a shit ton of gossip about everybody. Regular Peyton place. Go ask your parents. As it turns out, Harper hasn't been the luckiest when it comes to love. She was involved with her, she had a high school boyfriend, and, they were really close and everything was great and stuff like that. But then he wound up leaving her, and, he left town, and all the other men that she's been involved with ever since, they keep disappearing, stuff keeps going wrong, and she just has this reputation in town of being unlucky in love. And so we cut back to Sam and Charlie, and they're talking, and Sam's naturally worried about Dean, and Charlie, brings up that maybe Sam should ask somebody to look in on Dean, and Sam, without, I think he kind of said it and didn't think about how much this might sting, said that they used to have somebody that they could do that with, and that was their version of Charlie. And Charlie is a little irritated with Sam, and I kind of don't blame her. I mean, like I said, I don't think Sam meant to say it in a way that was hurtful. I definitely know Sam didn't mean to be hurtful, but it stung. You could tell that did sting Charlie a little bit. And she says that she's not their Charlie. And she tells Sam and talks with him about who she was before the Angel War happened on her world. That pretty much her life was a lot like our Charlie, or the Winchester's Charlie. She was a programmer. She worked at Richard Roman Enterprises. Apparently over on that universe, Richard Roman hadn't been taken over and was a Leviathan. We don't know. But she brings up something that didn't happen to our Charlie, that she was involved with somebody. She was living with her girlfriend, her life partner. Let's go with life partner, Kara, who owned a bakery in Chicago and baked cupcakes, and she says how she always smelled of peaches and how much she loved her. And you can tell in her voice how much she desperately loved this woman. And she goes on to tell Sam that when Lucifer and Michael's fight started, there was this huge EMF pulse that knocked out all the power and knocked America off the grid power-wise. And that, once the food started to run out, people got crazy. She brings up how, one day the water's turned off and the next day people are on fire. And she also brings up that Kara's death was early on in all of that mess. And that she just doesn't want to be around people any longer, because once society starts to fail, it's very weird. It's not that what she's saying is reminiscent, but it made me think of when she's talking about how, society breaks down and people turn on each other. I was kind of reminded of the lines that the Joker gives in The Dark Knight, talking about how people will eat each other when things go wrong and stuff like that. Unfortunately, it takes a disaster to show some people's real personalities and show who they really are, which is a sad thing. Cut back to the diner where we see Jack and Dean are both having slices of pie, which Dean immediately tears into right away. Jack picked up on the word courting when Dean was first interviewing the waitress, and Dean tells him that once they get back to the Batcave, after all this is over, that they'll have the talk. I'm like, the talk. Dean Winchester is going to give Jack the talk. Oh boy. And that sound you hear, that tap, 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 tap sound, that's 70 million fanfic writers who just jumped on their computers so hard they probably broke something writing this scene right now. Jack asks Dean how they're going to find Harper and how they're going to get her to speak to them. And Dean asks Jack a kind of funny question by asking if he's ever read a romance novel. So what they decide to do, obviously, is they're going to play good cop, bad cop, but they're not playing it like I'm a cop and you're a cop. Dean goes into the library first and starts interviewing Harper about what happened to Winston. And she doesn't really want to talk to him about it, but Dean is pushing, but obviously pushing in a very jerky kind of way. Jack comes into the library and he's wearing his regular clothes. He's not dressed in his FBI suit any longer. And he's asking about a book, and Dean starts being a jerk to him too, calling him a kid and basically being like, I was here first and all this. And Jack starts to defend Harper. He starts being all like, well, she doesn't want to talk to you, and, you're obviously not being very nice to her, and you should leave, and all this stuff like that. And during this kind of back and forth where it's very obvious they're playing good cop, bad cop, in trying to get Harper to notice how sweet and nice Jack is, so she'll talk to him. It's a clever plan, but it's a clever plan that promptly bites Dean on the nutsack when Jack, during this whole acting bit, refers to Dean as old man. And the look on Dean's face is seriously like, what did you just say? Oh my gosh, it is so funny. And Dean winds up leaving and sitting out in the car and being like, oh man, my ass. It's like, you can definitely tell, like, when I get you alone, you little twit. You wouldn't really do anything. And the thing is, Harper's all like, ooh, like all starry-eyed over Jack, which is understandable anyway, because, you're a girl, you've just lost somebody that you apparently either, if didn't have feelings for, at least was a friend, and some guy's coming in and being all assholey to you, and all of a sudden here's this, adorable little ray of sunshine who's all like, oh, I'll defend you, and I don't care who you are, you can say, I'm a hardcore feminist, blah, 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 and that's fine. If you're a feminist, great, but anybody who stands up for you, you're instantly kind of like, oh, wow, thank you, that's really nice of you. And if it's somebody who looks like Jack, I'm sorry, I'd be all like, oh, you stood up for me, come here. I'd like to reward you somehow. That's a little too much information, sorry. Bad Platinum Rose lady, no cookie. So she and Jack wind up talking, and she says she has a book for him back at her apartment. And the bow chicka wow wow music starts playing in the back of my head because I have a filthy, 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 filthy mind. And she winds up leaving the library with Jack as, Dean's watching them go. Miles comes out of the library, pretty much chasing after them. And, it's like, you're taking this guy back to your apartment. Are you crazy? All this kind of stuff like that. And to be kind of honest with her, to be kind of honest with Miles, although I don't want to agree with Miles because he seems like a real ass clown. I mean, I've watched enough episodes of Law and Order Special Victims Unit to know that taking a guy back to your apartment that you've just met, that never ends well. Harper basically tells him everything's fine and winds up, taking Jack back to her apartment. Miles, in a snit, goes back in the library. Dean, like I said, has been watching all of this, and Dean gets out of the Impala and goes to follow Harper and Jack back to Harper's place. Miles, meanwhile, who is really pissed off, goes out, takes the trash out from the library and, puts it in the trash can and stuff like that, and winds up being jumped by something. And Dean, who's on his way to he's following Jack and Harper, hears a scream and hears a commotion, goes back to the alley and finds that Miles is now very much dead. There's a pool of blood under him. He's pretty much, toasted. And while he's looking at Miles, something is watching Dean from behind a bunch of bushes, and we see it it looks like it's running off or running around the bushes. Back in Tennessee, Charlie is telling Sam that, first of all, Sam notices like all the books that she has, and he asks her how many she's read, and she says all of them. And Charlie also tells him that she hates hunting. She can't stand it. And Sam is kind of surprised by her attitude because he says that, she's a really good hunter. But she tells him that, you know, the job, there's just too much heartache. There's just too much, you know, pain involved, not only physical but emotional pain. And that she is intending this to be her last case. After this, she's leaving. And when I mean leaving, I don't mean she's leaving, you know, I don't mean leaving the bunker. I mean, the Batcave. I like calling it the Batcave. The bunker has a lot of Nazi imagery for me, and I can't deal. You know, she's leaving the Batcave. She's leaving, from the sound of it, she's leaving Kansas. She says she wants to go live on a mountaintop somewhere, as, you know, as long as it's a mountaintop that has Wi-Fi. I don't know how that works because I'm not a computer person, but I would think a mountaintop would be a great place to get Wi-Fi because there's no, like, you know, interference. Mountaintop, you know, hello. But, you know, and Sam's got that whole Sam look in his eyes like, what? Wait, no, you can't leave. You know, like that, you know, look that would make me do pretty much anything Sam told me to do because it's Sam. You know, but he also, you can tell Sam's like, living by yourself and being alone after the things you've seen is a very bad idea. You can just see all of that in Sam's eyes. Through the books that she's been looking at, Charlie thinks what they're dealing with is something called a musca. A musca is a really horrible looking thing. It turns out that what she thinks it is, as I said, a musca, which is a combination of a man and a fly, which nobody's actually ever seen one up close and lived to talk about it. That these are communal creatures, and that, like a rogue male, what they refer to as a bad egg, that can't find a mate, will leave their nest and go off on its own. And that this is what they're dealing with, sounds like an unmated one of these things, that the goo she found, you know, this gunk is something that they spit out that binds people's bodies together and they nest and breed in them. Ugh. That's really gross. So we see Harper bringing Jack to her apartment, which, I mean, to be perfectly honest, looks like a very nice apartment. You know, it doesn't look like some creepy serial killer place or anything like that. She says she's going to go get the book for him, and he decides that he's going to do all the tests while she's getting the book. So he places a silver coin on the ground, manages to get holy water smeared all over his hands, and when she comes back in the room, says the word Christo. Now, them using Christo in the show should shut everybody up who's been whining that they haven't used that since Phantom Traveler, right? Maybe, please. The silver is obviously to check to see if she is a shapeshifter or a werewolf. The Christo and the holy water would be to see if she's a demon or possessed or something like that. And nothing happens. She picks up the coin. Nothing. She touches his hands and notices his hands are wet. Nothing. And she didn't react at all to the whole Christo thing. So Christo, check. Holy water, check. Silver, check. So we're not dealing with a demon or a werewolf or a shapeshifter. So there's that. Also, during all of this time, Jack has gotten at least one call from Dean, which he hits the thing saying that, you know, he can't take the call right now. Back in Tennessee, there is a person now, there's a couple of ladies sitting at the bus kiosk, and they're joined by a figure dressed all in black, with some kind of weird kind of hood thing on. It's like some kind of, it almost kind of reminded me of like a mourner's outfit. I mean, for lack of a better term, it was like a mourner's outfit crossed with like a mourner's veil crossed with a beekeeper's hat. If that makes any sense to anybody, if you can kind of picture what I see in my head, I don't know. The two ladies, needless to say, you know, leave. but this figure definitely catches, Sam and Charlie's attention. Harper starts talking with Jack and starts telling him a little bit about her family and stuff like that. And she says how she is they talk about where they're from, and Jack says he lives in Lebanon, Kansas, to which I'm like face palming, going, why did you do that? Harper says that her family's been living in this town for generation upon generation, and she asks Jack if he believes in the concept of love at first sight. And she also says, that she's had all these problems in luck and stuff like, she's very unlucky in love ever since her boyfriend left town, her high school boyfriend Vance left town all these years ago. Ever since then, she's been very unlucky in love, but that she tries to stay optimistic. And Jack says he tries to be optimistic too, because he tells her that he's had some, bad things happen in his life. And I'm sitting there going, oh, you sweet, precious little muffin. I can't stand it anymore. Come here. Let me clutch you to my bosom and make everything all right and tuck you in bed and feed you cookies. Damn this show for unearthing my maternal instincts that I never knew I had. Jack, needless to say, when Harper gets a little bit, she's still not, she's not like making sexual moves on him or anything like that, but all her talk about love at first sight and all that stuff like that is a little bit much, and he winds up going into the bathroom and takes a call from Dean. Dean tells Jack about finding Miles' dead body, and as he's talking, he winds up being attacked by whomever or whatever was behind the bushes. Jack hears Dean's, sharp yell, and then the phone goes dead. It's not very long after that Dean literally throws the door open to Harper's apartment. Harper's definitely like, what the hell? And Jack's trying to calm her down. We're trying to help you. It's okay. Dean, as he's putting chairs up against the door, is talking a mile a minute and saying how he and Jack, in fact, are not with the FBI. Surprise. And they're trying to save people, including save her. Dean looks at the picture that's on one of Harper's shelves, which is her ex-boyfriend, Vance, the one that she said left town. And apparently left town, is that a euphemism for died or whatever? Because there's somebody pounding on the door, and they're pounding on the door, shaking the handle, and they're yelling Harper's name, and they want to get in very, very badly. As it turns out, it's Harper's high school boyfriend, Vance, who is now a zombie, and a very pissed off zombie at that. And also not your traditional Romero slow-moving zombie. Oh no, we're dealing with a crack zombie. And we're not only dealing with a crack zombie, we're dealing with a pissed off, jealous crack zombie. I think if anything could get any worse, fuck it if I know what it would be. Jack manages to get Harper out of the apartment, because Dean says, take her and go. And Dean winds up having a very physical, extremely nasty, mostly Dean getting his ass handed to him fight with Vance. So back in Tennessee, we see Sam he's still talking with Charlie, trying to convince her not to leave once this case is done, but she's very adamant about it. Now, we don't know how long they've been sitting here. Sam's got a little 5 o'clock shadow thing happening, which is hot, because it's Sam. I'll shave that for you, baby. And lick you clean, too. Anyway, moving on. The creepy figure winds up coming back and is sitting on the bench, the bus kiosk bench again. And there's another person sitting there, an African-American gentleman. Now, as they're sitting there, a bus pulls up, and they're out of Sam and Charlie's viewpoint while the bus is there. The bus winds up pulling away, and the figure in black and the other gentleman are gone, and they didn't get on the bus. And Sam and Charlie see what looks like the other gentleman being dragged back in the civilian. Let's go with civilian for right now. The civilian being dragged back into an alley behind the bus kiosk by the figure in black. And Sam and Charlie, start on the pursuit. Jack and Harper are trying to, they're running to, it looks like they're running to the library. Harper is completely freaked out, and Jack's trying to get her to come with him. And as they're running, Jack winds up throwing the book that Harper gave him on a bench nearby. Now, Sam and Vance are still fighting, but all of a sudden, when the book leaves Jack's hand and hits the bench, all of a sudden, Vance kind of gets this look on his face, like, almost kind of like a dog losing a scent, kind of thing, and winds up running out of the apartment. And of course, Dean is completely like, what the fuck, where are you going? We were fighting. Jack and Harper wind up hiding in the library and shut the lights off and everything and keep themselves hidden. Sam and Charlie find the lair of the Muska, which is gross. It's this building that is, it looks like an abandoned warehouse kind of a deal. It's dark, it's dank, it's dingy, it's full of flies, and it smells of rotting meat and pine cleaner because there are no pest strips everywhere. Ugh. And I throw up in my mouth a little bit because it was just gross. They Sam and Charlie split up as they're trying to find both the victim, the civilian, and the Muska. As it turns out, from the book that Charlie was reading, Muskas are supposedly supposed to be the way to kill them is by killing them with a brass nail dipped in sugar water. Okay, I don't know how that's gonna kill it, but whatever. So they're searching this building, and they, as I said, they split up. Sam winds up finding the briefcase that this creepy figure had, which had a chloroform rag in it, and Charlie finds a pile of dead bodies with the most recent victim. The civilian from the bus kiosk is on top, and he's still alive. As she tries to raise her voice to get Sam in there, all of a sudden this hand shoots out and grabs at her. She gets free, but she falls from the place where she was, which is on this kind of platform above the floor, and gets kind of knocked a little dizzy for a second. Sam comes running back in, and he winds up being attacked by the Muska, which was hiding, I guess, for lack of a better term, and it rears up, so it's in its full, form, standing there, and it is really fucking horrifying. Holy fucking shit. I mean, I know this show gets scary sometimes, and it gets gross and stuff like that, but scary and gross, I mean, wow. For anyone who ever saw the classic horror movie The Fly, and remember how that looked, this is worse. This is way worse. This is like Arnie in Predator. You are one ugly motherfucker. Ugly. Blah. And this thing's putting his hands on Sam, and I'm like, gross shit, get off. The Muska winds up attacking Sam and manages to get him on leaned up against a wall, but on the ground, and starts covering him, spitting this slimy, gooky stuff on him. Blech. And while this is happening, Charlie winds up stabbing the Muska in the back, and I couldn't see what she stabbed it with. I don't know if she grabbed a nail or if it was a knife or what. While it's writhing in pain, Sam manages to grab his gun and blam, chest shot, which winds up killing the Muska and also getting Charlie a face full of Muska guts and gooky, slimy, disgusting stuff, and it's very gross. Very, very gross. we see Jack and Harper in the library, and he says he locked the door, and she says, she's basically saying, did you lock a special part of the door? And he's like, what? How am I supposed to know about that? And she gets up, and it looks like she's going to lock the door. As it turns out, she does not lock the door, and lets Vance in. And Vance is not all like, crazy zombie Vance. Now all of a sudden he's like super calm, nice Vance, and he hands her the book, and she kind of coos at him, and they kiss. Ugh. Oh, I definitely threw up in my mouth. Now Jack is completely like, what the? As it turns out, this is their game. Their little, some people, she brings up how some people, play nurse and doctor. Some people, tie each other up. Some people want to play spy and interrogator, that kind of a thing, if that's your bag. This is their game. And that she, for lack of a better term, gets off on having guys get killed as a way to enhance and keep their relationship, spicy, I guess. And also the fact that Vance, who is dead, needs to eat, being a zombie, needs to eat people to maintain his life or unlife. And now Jack has to die. Harper gets on the PA that is in the library, and she's explaining to Jack what's going on, that she is a necromancer. She comes from a long family of necromancers. And although I'm sure you guys out there listening to this show are a smart bunch of folks, in case somebody doesn't know, I will now spare you a trip to the dictionary. A necromancer is a person who practices the art of necromancy. Necromancy is magic about and dealing with the dead or dead bodies. Depending on what form of necromancy you're dealing with, necromancy can be anything from communicating with spirits to try and find something out, or raising the dead, which apparently is something. And you have to be a pretty friggin' powerful necromancer to do that. I'd just like to bring that up. She also says that she knows that both Jack and Dean are hunters, and that they're gonna have to get killed for that. And she actually does like Jack. But her whole thing is that, Vance and I are in love, and it's the best love of all because it was our first love and all this stuff like that. And oh, by the way, that whole thing about Vance, leaving town and all that stuff like that, yeah, that was bullshit. She knew Vance was dead because she killed him. Vance's whole thing was, after they graduated high school, he wanted to leave McCook, and Harper was all like, no, we can't leave. And he was all like, well, I'm leaving. And she was all like, well, you're dead now. So she killed him and then brought him back as a zombie so they could be together. Okay. No. Nope. Nine yet. Forget it. Negagate. Nine. No. I mean, I'm a romantic, and I am more than a little creepy on my own, but there are some places and there are some lines I will not fucking cross. And necrophilia, that's a big one. I know some people might argue, this isn't necrophilia because he's not dead, he's undead. Screw you. I'm sorry, that's a dead person. That's a dead person that's up and walking around and being kept alive by magical means. That's still a dead person. That's still necrophilia. Screw you. Ick. Gross. Vance winds up stalking Jack through the library, and when Jack's leaning up against a wall trying to figure out what the fuck to do, all of a sudden a hand is on his mouth, and we all scream and we realize it's Dean. Dean somehow got in the library, and he tells Jack's all like, shouldn't we just shoot him in the head? And Dean's like, no, that doesn't work on these kind of zombies. You have to, in order to, get these kind of zombies to quit, you have to get them back in their grave and drive a silver stake through their heart. These aren't like regular zombies where it's just boom, headshot. So Jack decides he's going to start talking to Harper, and he starts telling her all this stuff where he's all like, oh, I know that, I know what you are, and it's okay. We can still make this relationship work. I'll stay with you forever. I'll never leave you. And she's all like, oh, but I tried to kill you. And he's all like, well, all relationships have their bumps. He's using her words back at her. And I'm like, damn, son, when did you get so sneaky? Sneaky little monkey. I love it. And she is falling for it, which is completely understandable when you see how adorable Jack is when he gives these lines out. But the thing is, Vance hears all of this, and Vance, being a zombie, obviously there's not a lot working upstairs, starts to think, maybe not think, but he's hearing her say all this stuff to Harper, and Harper seems like she's falling for it. And Vance winds up, rushing at Jack and, screaming at him that, it's pretty obvious he intends to tear Jack into little bitty pieces. And, Dean winds up, that's the shot that Dean needs, and he winds up shooting Vance. And as they're struggling back and forth and Harper's telling him to kill Dean, Jack appears on the other side of Vance, and Vance and Dean both handcuff, Jack and Dean handcuff Vance to some, one side of him is handcuffed to a pipe, and the other side of him is handcuffed to what looks like a book cart or something. I don't know what's in the handcuffs, but Jack starts screaming like they're burning him, so they might be dunked in holy water or holy oil, or they might have some kind of sigil on them or something. The thing is, when Jack and Dean both look up, Harper has run out the door, and she's in the wind. We see Sam and Charlie driving back from Tennessee, and they're talking. They're obviously both cleaned up, and they're talking about how Sam's saying, like, he's basically asking her not to leave, that it's not a good thing to be alone like she wants to be. And, he's weird because he's trying to use the monster they just killed as a way to, kind of like, well, the Muska was alone and it left its family and it's left its kind, and it, it went and did all these terrible things because it was alone, because it was unhappy. Charlie's not really buying a lot of it, because I don't think I'd want to be compared to some half fly, half dude guy, but she does tell him that she'll think about staying. Now, the thing that is really interesting, and I thought was actually really kind of beautiful, was that while Sam and Charlie are talking as they're driving, we keep cutting back and forth between them talking and this other scene, which is still going on back at the warehouse where they left the Muska's body. We also find out from Sam and Charlie's discussion that the civilian they rescued is in the hospital and he's going to be okay. But anyway, back at the warehouse, we see a group of these, I don't want to use the word monsters, but that there's this whole bunch of Muskas that have shown up, and they very tenderly put the body of their brethren on a stretcher and they take it away. They just leave. They don't seem to be like, frothing at the mouth, trying to get revenge or anything like that. They almost seem like they knew something like this was gonna happen because one of their kind strayed out on their own. They went out into a dangerous world, and a world where they really had no place, and they would not had no place. That sounds terrible. A world where they wouldn't be safe, and they weren't safe. And I actually found that scene kind of beautiful in a way. We see Harper, who we don't know where Harper is. It doesn't say. There's no thing on the Chyron or anything saying where she is, but she's in a diner somewhere, and she's writing a letter to Jack, and she's saying things. The letter says, Jack, I'm already writing. Isn't that crazy? I'm not crazy, but our love is so vivid. I can't wait to find you. You're the first man to ever get me to leave McCook. Now I'm in the world. I'm sorry I have to kill you for what you did to Vance, but then I can bring you back so we can be together again. It's gonna be perfect. See you soon. Love, Harper. And then she signs the letter and addresses it to Jack in Lebanon, Kansas. And I'm just sitting there like, what the what? It was like, oh no. It's like, okay, so now Jack has this completely psycho necromancer bitch convinced that she's in love with him, and she just wrote him a letter of bunny boiling crazy. I mean, I'm sorry, this chick is way beyond the broad from Fatal Attraction. Wow. Oh boy. We cut back to the Batcave, where Jack and Dean are talking about what happened, and they bring up how Vance has been put back in his casket and has a stake driven through his heart, so he's not going to be going anywhere. And Dean tells Jack that he did a good job, that he did some nice work on that case. Which, considering the fact that there was a point when Dean wanted to kill Jack, I'm like, well, we've come a long way, haven't we, baby? Jack says that he wants to be allowed to, be part of more hunts because he was right. This was a case. Something crazy was happening. Dean tells him it's not about being right. And that when you go on hunts, that sometimes you make a mistake. And what you do after the mistake and how you learn from those mistakes, that's what's important. Jack says something to him that's very, very wise for someone who's still pretty young in real life. He says how, it's also important not to beat yourself up over the mistakes that you make. And Dean looks at him and he says, Jack, you're pretty smart sometimes. I'll tell you what, when Sam gets back, I'll talk to him about letting you go out on more hunts. Okay? In the meantime, we'll get you a crate of cough drops. Now, he's saying this because Jack has started to cough again. Jack responds to that with, I'm fine. It's all part of being human, right? But the problem is he keeps coughing. And as he's coughing, all of a sudden, both him and Dean look down, and there's blood on his palm about the size of a quarter. Jack raises up his head, and there's blood coming out of his nostrils. And he says something to the effect of how he doesn't feel well, and he slides to the floor as Dean's calling. Dean has this horrified look in his eyes as he's calling Jack's name. He's looking around like maybe, I don't know if there's other people in the diner. In the Batcave. There doesn't seem like there's anybody else there. For once, it seems really quiet. And the episode ends. I have to give Optimism 5 bouquets out of 5. I thought this episode just knocked it right out of the park for me. It was funny. It was scary. There was just so much about it that was so amazing. The whole good cop, bad cop scene between Dean and Jack was so funny. The complete look of, what did you just say? on Dean's face when Jack calls him an old man. It was just hilarious. I love the chemistry between Sam and Charlie. This isn't our Charlie. And that's okay. That is okay. Because she's her own person. And that's really cool. I find it interesting that both that Charlie and our Charlie were lesbians. I'm like, wow, okay, that's pretty interesting. And any excuse to see Felicia Day again is just, that's just gravy. Obviously, Alexander Calvert, amazing. Jared and Jensen, just awesome. I want to bring up Maddie Phillips, the young lady that played Harper Sales. Oh my gosh. Maddie. I think you're incredible. She's actually been on Supernatural before. She was in the episode from 2015, Halt and Catch Fire. But her portrayal as Harper completely knocked it out of the park for me. She is this incredible combination of cute and crazy. It's just absolutely fantastic. When the mask kind of gets peeled away and you see the person that Harper really is, it's incredible. It's really incredible. I hope we see Maddie. I hope we see Maddie again because I hope we see Harper again. We have a definite reoccurring villain in Harper that could be really, really interesting, especially if she teams up with somebody else. The Muska, I was like, wow, that's a really fascinating kind of creature. I wonder if we'll ever see them again. I don't know. Like I said, 5 bouquets out of 5. Loved this episode. Kicked ass. This coming week's episode, Unhuman Nature. We know that Sam and Dean and Castiel are all going to know by now that there's something very wrong with Jack, and they're going to be desperate to try and fix it. And Jack and Dean are headed to Vegas. I really don't think Vegas is ever going to be the same. So that's going to do it for another week here on Platinum Rose's Garden. If you'd like to send me any kind of a comment, you can shoot that over to platinumroselle@yahoo.com. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at platinumroselle@twitter.com. You can also find my fanfic on fanfiction.net. Search the author search and look for Platinum Rose Lady, and you can find my works there. If you'd like to listen to some other stuff that is part of our little island of misfit toys, you can check out my other solo show, which is Ring Around the Rosie, which is at ringaroundtherosie.net. That's my wrestling podcast. TC and I have been running Subject Cinema for over 10 years. It's our movie podcast. It's a lot of fun. We have Front Row 5 and 10, which is our list show. And TC has some solo projects as well. Those would include Catastrophe Vortex, which is his disaster movie show. And he also has Tuesday Digidex and 3 Minute Weekend, which are his shows that look at what's coming out to your local theaters, what's coming out on DVD, what's coming out on demand, all that fun stuff so you know where to spend your coinage. And you can check out the Lion Family over at Cavebabble. There's some great people. And if you are into the YouTube scene, you can check out Nerd Grotto, Aunt B's Nerd Grotto with Anthony Lamberti. And also, there's more. If you want to check out our dramatic bent, because we're all pretty bent here, you can check out Manhattan Hammerdown As It Happened and our production of The War of the Worlds. They're both amateur productions, but they're definite labors of love that we put a lot of time and effort into. By we, I mean mostly TC because he writes all this stuff because he's awesome. And you can check out the links for all of those on our pages. And as I said, that's going to wrap it up here for another week on Platinum Rose's Garden. I am Platinum Rose Lady, hoping that you have a wonderful week coming up. Everybody stay safe, dress warm in the Northeast because it's going to be cold. And remember to love the ones you hug the ones you love, and take some time to stop and smell the roses. I'll see you around. Bye.
Podcasting's choice. From coast to coast, continent to continent, right here 24/7.